Anyone here technical? Because there's going to be some fuck-ups. I was trying to download some music last night. It didn't work. So I want you to imagine some Armenian music tinkling in the background, if you could. Tinkle, tinkle. Shit, here we go. Okay, my name's Derek. I'm an alcoholic. I'm also an addict, but I've been clean and sober for 30 years. However, I'm still addicted to a really bad addiction. It's called a transverse V-twin engine, as in fitted in my Moto Guzzi. I've been trying to fight this one for a long time, but can't give it up. So, okay. The reason I'm an alcoholic is because this year I did a short trip out to, I ended up in Ukraine, but I went through Hungary and, what's the name of the place? Romania, which is fabulous, by the way. Biking roads are amazing. Anyway, this whole trip, my whole thing is about meeting people rather than going to see places and looking at architecture. And this trip I met 4 alcoholics and an overeater. So it wasn't really the best trip I've done. And the first alcoholic I met, I've known her for a long time, but she's in Germany. So she'd had a bottle and a half of wine, and she's getting quite kind of honest with me. So I think she's mid-30s, and she's saying, Derek, I'm looking for a partner. I really need, I think, now to get married. I said, okay. And she said, I've met this beautiful Spanish guy, and he's got a great body, very funny, very clever, makes quite a bit of money, but his dick is only this long. So, she's not going to go for him. And I thought, that's very nice. I moved on. And I got to, where was the next place? Oh yeah, Poland. And I was staying with a family there, really nice folks. So I get there at maybe 9 o'clock in the morning, and the husband arrives home, pissed, at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I think, okay, this is going to be a good trip. So I moved on. I got down to Slovakia, and the woman I was meeting there used to work for me about 17 years ago in the UK, and sad actually, she arrived with her son in her car, and she was pissed, and I was really worried about that. I mean, it's just not good. So I said, look, you go home, and I'll meet you later on. I'll come in a taxi, take her out for dinner. So I got there in the taxi, and she said, I'm moving to a new apartment. I've got a few things to move. So the taxi driver came and looked at a few things, and he said, I've got to get a truck. So off we went to get this truck, and she loaded it up. We're supposed to be having dinner, right? She loaded it up, and we moved to this, we took it over to her new apartment, and she just had a row with her mother, that's why she was leaving. And the apartment's got concrete floors, and it's, whoever lived there before has just moved out, and the place is filthy. So she's moved in there with her son, and it's up 4 flights of stairs, and I can't walk up 4 flights of stairs. I can't fucking breathe, let alone walk up 4 flights of stairs. So we finally got in there, and I took her out to dinner, and it was, to be perfectly frank, it was miserable. And I met her sister, who was saying, can you do anything? Because I'm an alcoholic. And I said, no, she's an alcoholic. There's fuck all I can do about it. So I moved on, and I got to Hungary. And I'm supposed to be, this trip, I've been learning the tango, right? And I'm not very good, but I'm learning the tango. So I do couch surfing, and that's how I meet these people. And this one was a dancer. And I thought, okay, bit of tango, that'd be lovely. And I got there, and she is an overeater. She's enormous, this woman, but dances. She dances something called the Zumba. Anyone here dance the Zumba? No, don't bother. It's just really. So I moved on from there, and if any of you follow my Facebook, you'll know that there was a few problems with the bike in Romania. I got to Moldova. Moldova is probably the poorest country in Europe. And I thought they spoke Russian. In fact, they speak Romanian, which is Italian, if you like. Anyway, so I got there and staying with this woman and her boyfriend. And she's very, very smart, very clever. But at 8 o'clock? Yeah, 8 o'clock in the morning, in the evening, she starts praying. Now, you know, I have faith, if you like, but I'm not religious. But she started to pray at 8 o'clock in the evening. She's still doing it at 10 o'clock, right? And I'm thinking, fuck, what is this? So she went to bed, gets up in the morning at, what time was it? 6 o'clock, and starts praying. So we've got another 2 hours prayers going on. Breakfast, 9 o'clock. At 9:15, she pours her first martini cocktail of the day. And I'm thinking, what is this? So we sit chatting, and she said, where are you going from here? And I said, I'm going to Greece, I think. And she said, oh, I'd like to go to Greece. Can I come? So who cares? Yeah, sure. So we go on, she decides she wants to come to Greece. So I say, you know, my headlights failed, so I can't really drive in the dark. I said, we need to leave at 2 in the afternoon, because in Moldova, part of it's been taken over by the Russians, and there's an area where you can't go through because it's just very tricky. So I said, we've got to go this route, da-da-da. It's going to take some time, you know, no headlights, blah, blah. So at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, after she's finished a few more martinis, we start off. And I'm driving through the night by this time, and we're going through a road which is, you know, it's one of these, it's under repair. And there's dust everywhere, and it's just a nightmare. So I'm crawling down this road at maybe 40 miles an hour. We get to Odessa, and I found a couple of rooms in a hotel, which I did on, what's it called, booking.com. And hotel rooms are fine, but what I didn't know was there's a 24-hour car wash underneath. So all night long, this bloody car wash is kind of booming away, and the generator's going and all this. No sleep at all. 10 o'clock in the morning, decided to move. Went to another hotel in Odessa, and they've got these kind of wooden chalets, so I booked a couple of chalets next to each other. And that night, I could hear, in the room next to me, there was a wife. I could actually hear her elbowing her husband to stop him snoring, you know. So, and next door, I've got this woman who's praying again, and I'm thinking, fuck, I can't really do this. I can't go to Greece for this, you know, it's not on. Next morning we get up, and she said, I don't think I can go any further. And I said, why not? She said, well, on the bike I have problems with the vibrations on my thighs. Vibrations on the thighs. And I'm thinking, people pay good money to, you know, exercise their thighs, really, electrically. And some people pay good money to sit on a motorbike and have an orgasm, you know, with the vibrations going on. So anyway, I thought, no, I just can't be doing this, Greece, and no. So I bought her a bus ticket and she went home. That's all right. So I'm going down into Ukraine, and my business partner is down there with her daughter. So I thought I'd do a surprise. I'd turn up, and I found this hotel because I looked up on Booking.com, and the hotel is, the whole town is 92% full or something like that. So I booked this hotel, last one there, and drive around, sit down, go and see the people in the reception and say, you know, I've just booked and da-da-da. So the woman behind the counter said, I can't find your booking. So I just look, you know. So she calls in the senior management. Senior management comes down and said, oh yes, I have your booking. I said, that's great. He said, yes, but it's for a week's time. So I thought, you know, here I am. Bit difficult. So I found another one, and I got on the bike. I went, this town is 17 miles long. It's just like Southend-on-Sea, but Russia, you know, Ukraine. I went through the town, and eventually there's this beautiful white hotel which sits right on the beach. Absolutely lovely. So I get off, and no headlights, so I don't really want to drive back and find my business partner on the bike. So I call a taxi. Taxi arrives. I give him the address, off we go. He can't find the place, you know, we're driving around and da-da-da-da-da. So I said, okay, I'll get out. I'll ask someone local and I'll walk and find it. So I got out, walked, and couldn't find anyone local to find this hotel. So I couldn't find a taxi either. So I went out, got on the bus, went all the way back, found another taxi driver. We're talking, it's like, you know, 15 kilometres. found another taxi driver, and he took me. We eventually found this hotel, and those my business partners, lovely, big surprise and stuff like that. So I stayed there a couple of days, and that was quite fun. And then I was thinking, actually, I've had enough of third world. I'm not going to go to Greece. I'll go to Sweden. So, Jesus, a lot of planning in this journey, as you can see. So I toddled up to Kiev and stayed there the night, and then took off across Sweden. To Sweden. I went up through Germany and Rostock and places like that. Oh, by the way, if you go there from Germany to Malmo, don't take the ferry. It is just awful. You get on the ferry, because I'm a cheap bastard, that's why. You get on the ferry at 8 o'clock at night, and it sails about 10 o'clock, and it gets in at 6:30 the next morning. The thing is, they have these kind of swivel chairs, and they're the only swivel chairs. They're the only chairs on the boat, the swivel chairs. So you can't really sleep in these chairs. They're trying to sell cabins. The return fare is cheap at 60 quid. The cabin is 150, but I'm cheap and I can sleep on the seats. There aren't any seats. So in the morning, we get into Sweden, and I've had no sleep, and I've still got another 650 kilometres to cover. You know, it's like this. So I get to Sweden, that's okay. Meet the person I'm staying with, that's okay. And she said, we've had some robberies around here. Yes, all right. So I've decided that you have to take your motorcycle to my mother's, which is 20 kilometres away. Fine. So I take the bike over there, and I do get to dance the tango with her mother, who's 92 years old. Here we are trying to tango at 92. Anyway, I left the bike there. Then I went back to her apartment, which is in a tower block, way out of town. So I'm kind of imprisoned in this place for 4 days. And the only time I can see anything is when she arrives home from work, and she kind of takes me around stuff. So I'm not kind of 100% about Sweden after that. And then I decided, it's time to go home, which is lovely. But I wanted to go over the bridge, the bridge from Sweden to Denmark. You've all seen the programme. And it's fabulous, this bridge. And so I stopped halfway to take a photograph, as you do, which I then discovered was totally illegal. There's police cars flashing and Christ, so I'm going to take a photograph. So then I got to Sweden and, I got to Denmark. I wanted to stay in Copenhagen, which is a lovely place. There's kind of crowds walking the streets. Every bar has got different music coming out, really vibrant place. But my wife wants to go to Scandinavia, so I can't really stay in Copenhagen by myself because we've got to go there together. So we get, I then went, I did a B&B in Denmark and then turned left and went back through Germany. There's another story in here, but I can't remember what it is, so we're going to have to move on in a second. Yeah, and then I got home, so that's it. That's that little 4 drunks and an overeater. It's a shame I can't remember all the detail. I've got pictures here, this is good. Now, one of the problems about this is I've got the pictures, but and I wrote a script yesterday morning, but I can't see the script. So we might be ad-libbing a bit here. And if anyone recognises these photographs or recognises the area or the city or the lake or whatever it is, please come up and talk about it, because I've really... Okay, we'll try. What does that say? Oh yeah. I did an iron butt from Calais down to, from London rather, down to Faro a few years back. And it was a fast ride. I was riding on what did I have at the time? A VMAX. And a VMAX, as you probably know, is a lovely bike. Fortunately, mine had nitrous, so it was even lovelier. But it will only do about 80 miles to the tank when you're really kind of cranking on. So as I left, I stole my mother-in-law's catheter. And it was quite useful because I've only got an 80-mile tank, and my chum, his tank did 140. So on the motorways, there's no, between each stop, sometimes it's more than 80 miles, so I'm completely fucked and I don't have petrol, etc. So the catheter is used, washed out, I have you know. The catheter is used to transfer petrol between the tanks. And I go nowhere these days, I'm paranoid about petrol. I go nowhere these days without a catheter. So I say to you, motorcyclists, take a catheter wherever you ride. One of the things also I found about going to Portugal. It's about, I think, well, it was 1,500 miles anyway. And the thing is that Kiev is 1,500 miles as well. And I was thinking about this, and yeah, for me, there are countries of interest. And the countries of interest, really, I find them to be different worlds. So I can plod around Western Europe, and those of you who have been doing Europe over the last 10 years or so, you'll have noticed that it's becoming homogenous. You know, it's the same stores everywhere. The high streets are starting to look the same. The architecture is different, but there is this kind of sameness about it. So when you're planning a next trip, you think about the 1,500 miles, and you can be really in a different world if you just go in a different direction. So just stretch yourselves a bit, get past Poland, and then it's a different world and life really begins to happen. So I just did this. This is, if you ride 2 days out, 2 days back, that's more or less where you're going to get. You're going to get to, you can do Portugal and stuff like that. If you do 6 days, 3 days out, 3 days back, you can start getting into interesting places. You're into Eastern Europe, and it really is a different world. The culture is still different. It gets a little more problematic, but that's where the fun begins. If you've got a bit more time, you can get yourself to the middle of Kazakhstan and back. Normally, you're going to be doing, I'm going to try something different now. Most people get 2 weeks holiday. So you can cover Russia and a lot of other places in 2 weeks if you really want to. And then finally, if you've got a lot of time, then you can get yourself out to Mongolia. It's kind of 30 days there, 30 days back. Well, a lot of time kind of messing around in between. But that really, for me, it is just a different world. And I ride to meet people. I don't really go to see, if I can find somewhere on Google Earth, I promise you I'm not going, because it's going to be full of other people I don't really want to meet. So the thing is that when you're planning a next trip, just think, actually 1,500 miles, that would take me to Ukraine. That is different. And if I've got 2 weeks, I can actually get quite a way into Russia and Azerbaijan and all sorts of other interesting places like that. So this is the first trip I did in 2010, so I've got to look at this a bit because I can't see what I'm doing. And I went down to, where's that, Turkey, down there at the bottom. I started off just going to Kiev, but if you're in Ukraine, I think it's 30 days or something, you have to go out of the country, otherwise you're going to have to pay import duty and all this kind of stuff. So I just took a gentle stroll down to Turkey. And then 2011, this is on, I was on a Victory Vegas. And I rode down to the Iranian border, but didn't have a visa, so couldn't get in. And I went down to the Iraq and the Syrian border, but I didn't have a visa, so couldn't get in. Interesting thing about this really was I probably rode a couple of thousand kilometres on really, really, really bad roads. I can't stand going off road because when I fall over, I break bones, you know, because I'm too old now. I don't bounce. So I'm there on, you know, black leathers. I've even got a patch on my back, and I'm, you know, grunty. And so on the way back, still on these awful gravel roads, I'm thinking to myself, I really ought to find out about being an adventure rider, a real adventure biker. So I got back, and I didn't have any problems at all with this, with the Vegas. So it's a beautiful bike. There was just no problems whatsoever. But I got back. Where are we? Yeah. And decided I had to become a motorcycle adventurer. So I bought a Stelvio, Moto Guzzi Stelvio. I wasn't going to buy a GS because everyone's got one. So I bought this Stelvio. And I bought some technical clothing, which is great. I bought it on eBay. My wife bought it for me for Christmas, and I wore it once. It's very nice. So maybe I'll try and sell you some technical clothing a bit later. Anyway, this is, and also I wasn't really going to talk about this, but Paddy advertised it. You know, it said outside Moto Guzzi to Mongolia, so here we are. And 2013, I went. I was going to go to. Can't remember the name of the place. But it's in the far north of Russia, and it's their kind of Arctic Circle. I was going to go there. I got as far as Italy, and I had some problem with the forks. The bolts had sheared, so I had to get some new forks, and that was about £1,000, I think, and that shot the budget, so I wasn't going any further. So I stayed in Italy a couple of weeks, came back, and then I went with a friend round. I got the forks fixed, and we did Land's End to John O'Groats, and I learned something on this trip. What I usually do is I pitch up, on the road, and you find a B&B, so you bang on the door and say, can I come in, can I stay? And they take one look and say, no, we're full. And I'd done this about 6 times. My friend Keith, he said, Derek, you're wasting your time here. I said, yeah, but. So he brought out his phone, tick, 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 booking.com, instant. So I'm now a total convert to booking.com. And booking.com is in Siberia, by the way, so, you go where you like and you can find yourself a room. 2014. This is a trip I did on from up to the Baltics, and slept in a tent with Baltic princesses. If you buy the book, Volume 4, you can read all about that. And then I came home through the Balkans. Had a lovely time. It really was a great trip. And then following year, I was trying to set up a trip for people to do a tour on Ural motorcycles with a sidecar. So I thought I'd go and spot the route. And I got down to the Moldovan border, and I woke up one morning and I couldn't stand up. I was just so dizzy. And I thought, fuck me, it's a heart attack or a stroke or something like that. So I went and found a pharmacy, and they gave me some pills, which didn't really help. I mean, the headache cleared, but I was still kind of like this. And I waited a couple of hours, and it's getting a bit better. So, and I could sit on the bike, and I wasn't falling off, so that was okay. And so I went back to Kiev to find a hospital. Well, I'd been to hospitals in Ukraine before, and they're not the best places on earth, I can promise you. So I thought, no, I won't do this. I'll fly home to our National Health. So I flew home to the National Health, and they said, you haven't been drinking enough water. And I said, oh, come on. And they said, no, it's, you're not drinking enough water. So, and I waited 10 days, and I was drinking about 8 pints of water a day, and I wasn't feeling dizzy anymore, so that's okay. I flew back to Ukraine, picked up the bike, and then, there were some guys selling some lovely leather jackets in Berlin, so I thought I'd go there and have a look at them, etc., etc. Anyway, finally, I got home again, and it turned out that it wasn't a stroke, and it wasn't anything else, it was an ear infection. So be very careful when you're out there and you think you're having a stroke, it could be an ear infection. Anyway, I clean my ears more now. And 2016, I went to, what was going on? Oh yeah, I went out to Kiev. I have an office in Kiev, by the way, that's why I go there quite a lot. And on the way back, I was in Poland, and it was all very nice. I had a lovely time, and I was going down the motorway, and the oil lights started flashing. And I thought, well, I don't, what's this? So out comes the phone, we have a quick kind of look, and it says, it's a sensor, a known error, there's no problems. Right, fine. So I drove on a bit more, the oil light stays on, and I thought, well, what's this? And then it goes bang, 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 bang. And there was no oil in the engine, you see, which I learned, check the oil, right? Don't believe what it says on the net, check the oil. And so the upshot of it was really that I got off the motorway, and I pulled up in front of a cafe, and next door to this was a trucking company, Polish trucking company. They said, okay, we'll see what we can do. They took me to a hotel, put me in a hotel tonight, came back the next day, and they said, well, I think we can take you here and it might get fixed. But in the meantime, I'd done a bit of research, and I found this garage who said they could fix it. So the trucking company, they put the bike on the truck, they took me way across the city. This is Wrocław in Poland. They took me across the city, dropped me off at this motor cafe, got the bike off. The guys looked at it and they said, well, actually, no, the engine, it's fucked. And I thought, well, it's a technical term, by the way, this is really fucked. And so they said, we could fix it, but the easiest thing to do is to buy a new engine. So I thought, okay. I had to get a flight that night, which was 4 o'clock in the morning, and I met some people in this cafe, and they said, okay, we'll put you up and we'll take you to the airport at 4 in the morning or whatever it was. So they did that, which was lovely. I came home, and my wife's got a problem with her eye, so she's got to go to the eye hospital, which is good that I'm home to do with this. So I went to the eye hospital, and the cleaner called up, and she said, there's an engine just been delivered. And hang on, bikes in Poland, I've got an engine here in the UK. And my wife, so she's wearing a black patch now, my wife, looking like a pirate, you know. So I said, and I'm trying to call Italy on my phone, and the battery died, and I don't speak Italian anyway, so that's all a bit tricky. So I got home, and there's this engine sat in the hall, and I'm thinking, oh, fuck, what is this? So I finally managed to contact the Italians, and they said, okay, we'll send you another one. I thought, well, how many engines have they got? And they got this one picked up anyway, it went away, and they sent another engine out to Poland. And that was very nice, and it arrived in Poland, and the mechanic said, it's a lovely engine, Derek, but there's no engine numbers on it, so we're not sure if it's legitimate. So I think actually that down there in Mandello Delario, or wherever the factory is, I think at the back door there must be quite a few new engines being kind of shipped out. And I bought this engine in Naples, which is a big kind of mafia area, so I guess it's, you know, it's very... Anyway, I wasn't too worried because they put the engine in. And they fixed it. The engine cost 800 quid, which was really cheap, I thought. And they put the engine in, they charged me a couple of hundred quid, which was cheaper than doing it in the UK. And I did the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride in Wrocław, which is very nice, because that's a kind of a charity that's working worldwide now. Anyway, that was cool. So I rode home. So that's the end of that story. And now, I've done that one, haven't I? Okay, and I've told you about that. So, so these are the journeys I've done over the last 7 years or so. And I did calculate, I'm not very good at statistics, but I did calculate it's probably about 90,000 miles altogether. So some of the journeys are short, some a bit longer. What I have learned, what I've really learned, is that if you're going to do long distance, and I always go on my own, by the way. When I first started biking, I wanted to be an outlaw. I wanted to be a Hell's Angel, you know. And I met a Hell's Angel, and I didn't want to be a Hell's Angel anymore. So, but I used to go around on this big cruiser, you know, with the leather, black leather everywhere, and the patch and all this kind of shit. Oh, and we were riding through Reading one day, and we got a phone call a couple of days later from HA, and they said, you can't ride through our territory with a patch without asking permission in advance. So we're thinking, oh yeah, really? Is that how it works? So, and this is, my club is, it's Alcoholics Anonymous Club, and we're called the 3%. And that's because only 3% of people who go to Alcoholics Anonymous actually stay sober, which is pretty terrifying, given that it is the most effective alcohol program in the world. But anyway, so we called ourselves the 3%, which is a bit of a piss take, and because you know the HA are the 1%, so they didn't kind of go for that very much. Anyway, what happened was that they said you have to ask permission, and if you want to do it more regularly, you've got to affiliate. Now, the club was national. In the north of England, there's the pagans, so you don't really want to affiliate with the HA because there's going to be fisticuffs going on. So, and in the south, of course, there's the HA, etc., etc. So we decided, all sitting around, the club, there's a couple of hundred people in it, so we're sitting around, we're all ex-drunks and ex-druggies and things like that, and we decided that actually, we were probably accountants and dentists, really. We weren't, you know, we weren't gangsters and outlaws, so we decided to take the patch off. I just say that as an aside. I've lost my train of thought now completely. All right, we'll move on. So, we'll move on. Good idea. So we're going to do Mongolia. Right. Now, so I've stopped doing all the leather stuff, right? And you can see here, I've got my beautiful wax jacket. Notice the boots. The boots are kind of leather zip-up fireman's boots, which I bought from a leather fetishist in Texas. I didn't know he's a leather fetishist until I looked up his website, but nonetheless, I had these lovely boots. And so I'm sitting there ready to go. And I think to myself, do I look like a Mountie? Do I look as if I should be wearing a kind of Boy Scout hat and thing? I go, fuck me. And my wife's saying to me, she's saying, have you been to the toilet? Now, my wife is, she's an ex-head teacher, so she knows about toilets and taking people on long journeys and stuff like that. So I was sitting there thinking, do I look like a Mountie? If I do, would a Mountie's wife say to her husband up on a horse, have you had a pee? Right? This is what's going through their head, right? So I just nodded to her. I said, yes, 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 yes. Had a hug and thought, where's my passport? How can I get through customs without a passport? I'm thinking, can I actually get through Russia without a passport? Because I couldn't look now, you know, I was on the journey. So, and the fear at this particular point, I was up the night before at midnight repacking everything, you know, and have I got this, have I got that, and the fear that goes through me when I start on these things. So I'm sitting there thinking, do I look like a Mountie? Do I really need a pee? And where is my passport? And we move off the drive, and the fear goes, you know, because the adventure's beginning, and it's just everything is starting, and and we're off, basically. So, and I arrived in Dortmund, and I should tell you about couchsurfing for those of you who don't do this. Couchsurfing is a website, couchsurfing.com. There's a few million people on this website, and basically it's about kind of cultural exchange. So if you want to go somewhere, you put up your route. Short version is that then people say, will you come and stay with us? And it's mainly, it works all over the world, but it's really people either haven't got the money to travel or the time to travel, and they want to find out about culture, so they invite you so you can talk about, you know, your own culture. And I usually spend 2 or 3 days with people, and because I'm from the West and I'm old and I'm not, you know, no one's kind of frightened or anything else, they tell me the most extraordinary things, which is what I put in the books. So they don't know about that till afterwards, of course, but still. So this is Dortmund, and I've got half an hour, it's okay. Lovely, lovely woman, but I found out here that the German health service is no better than our own. She'd been in hospital for something, and they'd given her a blood transfusion, which was somehow the blood was poisoned. And it meant that she couldn't walk for 6 months. She was in a terrible state, really. Anyway, and because of that, she's a traveller herself, and she's an artist and a photographer. So she was very happy that I should go there and we could talk about photography and travel and things. Lovely one, and she gave me some nice sandwiches in the morning to travel with. Isn't that really sweet? And then I left our house, and I was using a GPS system called N-Drive. Fortunately, they've now gone bankrupt, so you don't have to go through the shit that I went through, but still. And it only took me, the motorway is 10 minutes from her house. It took me 3 hours to find the damn thing. So I was a bit behind. And then I got to Poland, another couch surfing thing. And I got to Poland it was, by the time I got to the village, it was really dark. I couldn't see a damn thing. And I phoned Marta, her name is. I phoned her up and said, I can't see you. And she said, oh, she said, I'll put the lights on. So she put the lights on, and there's this enormous, but enormous country house. And it's got kind of pillars and curlicue gates and all this kind of wonderful stuff. And she came down the steps, and she was wearing a kind of long, dark dress at the time. And it's a lousy photograph, but she's very attractive, got blonde hair. And I thought, wow. And she said, round the back, please. So I went round the servers' entrance. And she said, how nice to meet you. And I was covered in mud from head to foot, and she was looking so elegant. But anyway, she lives in this house on her own, and she's got some horses. And she's planning to ride her horse to Mongolia, which is one of the reasons she asked me to stay. So her parents live about half a mile away. This house is it's been in their family for generations, I think, but they can't afford to do it up anymore. So they built themselves a new house, and they live there. And she lives in this huge kind of mansion with a horse, and so we and the kitchen. You know, the kitchen was big enough. Anyone remember what's an Errol Flynn? Anyone remember Errol Flynn? Yeah, vaguely. No, well, Hollywood star, and he used to do all this kind of sword fencing and stuff like that. The kitchen was big enough to have a big kind of medieval sword fencing. And so I stayed there the night. That was very nice. And she printed a map off for me so I could get to up to the Ukrainian border. And I don't print maps. Well, I do. I had one printed map that took me from London to Vladivostok, right? And it wasn't very far because it was on a sheet of paper that big, so I knew I could make it. And unfortunately, it got covered in petrol quite quickly, and I wasn't going to Vladivostok anyway, so it didn't really matter. But I didn't have any maps, basically. And so she'd printed this nice map up for me, so onto the bike, off we go. And I found myself getting down a narrower and narrower and narrower road, and in the end, it stopped. It was a farm track, and there was a man ploughing a field, and I thought, fuck it, I missed the motorway somewhere. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. But, so I shouted, and I said, Warsaw, because I thought if I go to Warsaw, there must be a motorway on the way. So I said, Warsaw. So he kind of smiled, pointed, and I thought, okay, I'll go that way. So I went off-road, across his ploughed field, which wasn't very nice of me, but, you know, so I'm banging on, and I'm still a bit lost. So I stop at this shop, and there's a man in there, and there are rows and rows and rows of vodka, beer, wine, every alcohol you could think, and a few old vegetables, you know, because they also eat sometimes. So I said to the man, can you, I said it in Russian because I knew that he was of an age that he would have learnt Russian, but my Russian accent is very good. So anyway, I said, first in Russian, I said, Warsaw, that's Russian, and then I said English, Warsaw, and he went, and I thought, yeah, okay. He must know where his capital city is. And he went like this again. He's saying no. He's saying no, he doesn't know where Warsaw is. And I thought, well, you've got to know your capital. I mean, if I was in my country and this filthy biker walked through the door, covered from head to foot in mud, and said, where is London? I live at Heathrow, by the way. Where is London? I'd take him outside and point anywhere just to get rid of him. So this man took me outside and just pointed. So I thought, well, you know, that's a bit happier. So anyway, I followed the direction he's going, and I found a motorway, so I got on that and kind of bowled along. And so I'm riding along at speed. There's 4 Brit bikers, and I overtook them because I'm cool, right? Like this. And then the back wheel started wobbling, and I got a puncture. So I pulled up, and the Brit bikers just went boof. Sneer. And so I was a bit fucked really on this motorway. So I turned off and I went up the wrong way, you know, up the kind of down ramp, and I went went up it, and I was sitting there thinking, oh, I could have an adventure now. I could pretend to mend this tyre. So I was looking at it and scratching my head, and a guy came down the ramp the proper way. And he got out and he said in perfect English, he said, I'm a biker, can I help you? Wow. So he lived about a kilometre away. So we decided that I'd ride my bike to his place, and you know, he took off the wheel, etc., etc. I was there for 4 days. He got someone to open up a bike shop in the afternoon, and I bought a new tyre and they put it on, that was good. Put the tyre back on, started riding away, and the electrics fell apart. So, okay. Fine. And he'd called me at that moment to say, where are you? And I was about 500 metres away from where he first picked me up. So he came down again, and we got the bike off, and I can't remember if we pushed it or whatever. And so we spent half the night trying to fix the electrics. Wonderful, wonderful guy. And he owned a hotel. So he took me along to his hotel, and we sat there eating. And I was thinking, there's got to be a catch in this somewhere. So he said, right, you've got to pay for your meal. I thought, oh, really, that's fine. And he said, you've got to tell me what the best meat is that we've got here in this place. So magically, and I told him, I thought it was a kind of smoked pork or something. And magically, as we left the hotel, his chef came out and gave me this giant piece of meat, which I then tracked across Europe for the next kind of week or so. Anyway, we went back to his house, and I got on the bike. This is the following morning, because let me stay at his house. Got on the bike following morning, off I went. I went about 600 metres, and one of the spokes imploded into the back tyre, so that wasn't too good. No way, I couldn't start it. Again, I got it back to his house. He called up another tyre place. This was on a Sunday. And the chap opened up, we took the wheel down there, and he said, I can't do anything with the spokes, but he put a patch over it, and a little metal patch as well, bolted it down. And I'm still riding it, it still works, you know. But I mean, a Sunday afternoon, where would you find a big tyre company opening up to actually help a biker? They do in Poland. Fabulous place. I was outside of Lviv, and I've been through Lviv before. It's just over the Ukrainian border, and it's a beautiful, beautiful medieval city. In the centre are cobbles, yeah, cobbles, wet, motorcycle, not a good idea. So I'm on the outside of the city. Whoops, that's it. Show's over, and. I'll try and fix this while I'm chatting. And so I'm sitting outside the city and thinking, what the fuck, I don't want to go through the middle. And this guy turns up on a big yellow cruiser. Lovely bike. Anyway, he's got some really brilliant technology. He had this tank bag, and in the tank bag was a map. And I thought, wow, this works. So he said, look, here's the circular road. You go, no, like that. Fabulous, thank you. Half an hour later, I'm in the city centre on the cobbles. Right, it's raining. So I was sitting there thinking, fuck, as you do. And I'd got this, I was wearing wet weather gear, sweating, couldn't concentrate, and the lights went green, and I pulled out, and I was underneath the bus. And being underneath the bus in Ukraine is not a good idea. So I was laying there, couldn't breathe. Voice from the back in English, a woman, she said, it's okay, we're bikers. And I thought, wow. And they came and they picked up the bike, pushed it off the side of the road. The police arrived within moments. They bribed the police went away. The bus driver, they bribed him, he went away. A kind of dormobile thing turned up, and they pushed the bike on the dormobile. An ambulance had arrived, which I wasn't going to get in anyway. So I had to sign off the fact I was okay. But it transpired I'd broken a couple of ribs. So they took me off, one couple took me off to their apartment and looked after me for a few days. And, oh yeah, look, see, dormobile. That's it. Mechanics. So anyway, they took me off to their apartment, and every night they had a new bunch of people over to see the crazy English who was lying there with his broken ribs and da-da-da-da. And 4 or 5 days I was there, actually. Lovely people. And then in the end, they, these guys at the bottom, hang on, I've got a strobe thing here. I buckled the wheel. For some reason, the electrics had blown up again, and various other things. And they'd fixed it. The couple I was staying with moved off. They were going on a trip somewhere. So I went to stay with these guys, and they had a big barbecue to celebrate the crazy English. Next morning, I got on the bike. I'd got the bike, and I said, how much is that? And they'd been working out, I know, for 3 days. And they said, send us a postcard from Mongolia. No charge. Amazing, these people. So, off we went to Mongolia. This actually is Kiev, and it rained a lot, so we'll move past that. This is Kiev. It rained a lot. So, I left Kiev one morning. I was going to, we're going off to into Russia, and this is my first time into Russia, so I'm a bit nervous. And I saw someone parked in a lay-by going towards the border. So I pulled up, thinking karma, you know, I thought they had a problem, so maybe I could help them. So and it turned out as a woman, and she'd been down to the Crimea. There's a big motorcycle bash going on down there. And they're about, I think, well, it's just huge, this thing, and it's loads and loads of Russians go there. So, and they're all trekking back to the Russian border now. So I said, can I help? And she said, no, I'm looking at my map, da-da-da. And I said, are you going to the border? She said, yes. So, okay, I'll follow you. So I followed around onto another A road of some kind, and her chain fell off just as we got around the corner. So I thought, well, you know, I can't do anything, but I thought I'd pull up and sympathise, and I picked up the chain and took it to her. And then this another Russian biker pulled off the side of the road, and he was obviously from eastern Siberia because the physiognomy of the faces changed, and I thought this man looks very dangerous. I can't leave her with this Russian who's very dangerous. But he was taking off the chain, he was cutting out the links and stuff like that. He could obviously do things, right? Clever man. So in the end, she said, it's okay, he lives in Moscow, just around the corner from my own apartment. So I thought, well, that's all right. So I got on the bike, and there were 3 or 4 guys on Honda Goldwings, and they were going, whoom, and I thought, well, I'll follow them to the border, that's all right. So I got behind them, and they really didn't care, these Russian bikers. I mean, at that time, the police corruption in Ukraine was just awful. And but they just didn't care, they just went. So I followed them, vroomf. And I went about 90 kilometres, and we were really going at speed. Fabulous ride, like this. And I realised then that I was going to the wrong border, which was a bit of a problem. So I turned around and came back more slow. I got to the Russian border. I was supposed to be in Voronezh that evening. We got to the Russian border, and it got a bit difficult because I had a form to fill in, which was in Russian, right? So I tried, and I gave it to the guy behind the customs counter, and I knew there was going to be a problem because there's 4 or 5 of these guys behind the counter. This one was wearing a cap inside, right? But the thing about wearing the cap is it gave him another 4 inches. Right, so, I knew he was self-important to begin with, but now he's even 4 inches more self-important. So I filled in the form, gave it to him, and he said, niet, niet, perfect, which meant you have to have the form perfect. There mustn't be any crossings out or anything else. So I went away. There's a table which explained how to fill the form in, but it's all in Russian, so that wasn't too clever. And I went back, and he said, niet, niet, perfect, because I'd put a couple of mistakes in it. And there was a guy next to me, who this customs officer said, help him, right? The guy's Bulgarian. He doesn't read Russian either. So we're really fucked now, both of us. And about 2 hours later, I got these forms. And I'd been, shoving them backwards and forwards. And finally, I gave him one that he'd got rid of before. And a new one I just filled in. And they're on the web now, by the way. I'll give you my web address. You can go look for Going to Russia. Here's the form to fill in. And I put English translation next to it. Anyway, finally, I think it took about 2 hours. And I was really losing it. And but then I had this kind of moment, and this Russian guy, he really didn't give a shit and didn't have to. It was me that wanted to get into their country. He hadn't invited me, so I really just had to go their route. Whether he was being anti-Brit or anything, I really don't know. Maybe I had a bad night's sleep or something. But I finally got through customs at probably 10 o'clock at night, and I still had about, I don't know, 500-600 kilometers to do. And you're told never to ride the Russian night, right? And the drivers out there actually aren't very good. And there's a lot of holes in the road. Now, you're going down a road, and these people are swerving all over the place. You think, Christ, they're drunk. They're not. They're just avoiding the holes. And that's why you shouldn't ride the Russian night. And I did, but it was quite far north. And I think sunset was about 10:30 and dawn was about 3:30. So I'd had enough by about midnight, and I was laying down in this bus shelter. And it was just one of those moments, actually. I had a chocolate bar, which gave me a bit more energy. And, in Britain, most of us live in cities, and you look up the sky and you can't really see very much. And here in Russia, it was in the forest, and it was just so beautiful. And I just thought, yeah, we'll try this a bit more. So I got back on the bike, did another hour, and there's a petrol station. And there's a whole bunch of young Russians, and they're all partying. They're all pissed out of their head at kind of 3 o'clock in the morning. The dawn's coming up, and I thought, yes, this is a different country. This really is very different. And I got to Voronezh, this place, in the end, about 6 o'clock in the morning. And I couldn't find the apartment because all the apartments looked the same. The only thing I could see is this brand new shopping mall. And outside, there was a hole about 2 meters wide, and a car had fallen in it and just left it. Obviously someone on the piss, Saturday night, right, they dug a hole and shoved the car in. And I was like this. And right next to it was all these apartment blocks, and somewhere in there was the people that I was looking for. So It's now, I actually got there about 5:30. It's now 6 o'clock, and I'm running around dinging all these doorbells in these apartment blocks, and all these Russians shouting back at me. I didn't know what they're saying. It's probably very rude, who knows. And I found a man who was walking his dog, and I said, do you know where this apartment is? So he got out his GPS. Here we are in Russia. And he said, yes, it's there. And I knew it wasn't that, because I'd been dinging all those doorbells, and people were shouting at me, so I knew it wasn't that particular place. Anyway, he'd gone off with his dog. My phone wasn't working. I couldn't call Russia with a chip I had, whatever. Eventually he came back, and I said, can you call this number? So he called the number, and sure enough, he got through to the people I was staying with. And so now it's about 7 o'clock. But I mean, can you imagine walking around your town at kind of 6 in the morning, and again some kind of road-stained, filthy biker comes up and starts jabbering a foreign language and holding out phones and stuff like that? Could you imagine that happened to you? I mean, you'll just say, no, thank you, and walk on, wouldn't you, really? But anyway, so here I am in Voronezh at 6 in the morning, and we're chatting to these people, went to sleep, and then in the afternoon, we went off to a dacha. And I'm showing this road just here, which I found in the morning, not the night before. I wish I'd known the night before, because I wouldn't have gone down the road. People I was staying with, there were 2 girls and a guy, and he was on his motorcycle. We got to the dacha in I think it must have been 1 o'clock in the morning or something, because it was really just nothing. You couldn't see anything. And the people locally had been blocking off the roads because they didn't like tourists coming to their area. So he said to the girls, that you walk down there, it's 500 metres, I'll find a track round. So he went off into the night, couldn't hear his engine. About half an hour later he came back again, said, yes, I found a route, so that's okay. So I followed him, and we went, there was about, I think we did about 4 kilometres to cover 500 metres basically. And we were going down this incline here, and he just disappeared. I couldn't see him. So I got off the bike and I left it. I thought, fuck it, I'm not going any further. But fortunately, it actually turned into this dacha. Well, there's no electricity, so I couldn't, see it was there. And we were talking about it a bit later, and I said, how did you find your way in the dark? He said, I was stoned. I didn't care. Thank you, I thought. But I don't, I've said I don't like doing off-road, and I don't like doing off-road at night, and I don't like doing off-road in really black night in the middle of Russia, because it's not great. He was stoned, he liked it. What can I say? So, in the dacha, there was, this is the picture they banned from my book, by the way, well, the designer banned. They had this little kind of thing going on. If there was no water there either, so you had to go down to the spring. And they top up these kind of containers with water. And they had this little ceremony going on where the water carriers, they call themselves, have to take all their clothes off and pour water over themselves, which I thought was lovely because they're young and beautiful. But I'm not, so I didn't do any water carrying, I have to tell you. And then we went back to the dacha where they're cooking over an open fire. And they're collecting herbs to make tea. And I'm looking at these herbs and I'm thinking, that's a bit strange, I've seen those before. So they serve up the tea and I take a sniff and I think this is not quite for me. I'm an alcoholic and a druggie, I just don't want to go there. So they managed to find some other leaves for me to make tea. So we stayed there, I stayed there a couple of days, and starving at the end of it because there's fuck all to eat apart from marijuana really, so I wasn't going to eat too much of that. And what do we do? Oh, I left. So I got to, geez, I've got to speed this up a bit. This is Saratov. I was looking for the Trans-Siberian Highway. And I could see it on a map, and it goes from Moscow all the way to Vladivostok. And I'd spoken to a friend of mine in Ukraine. He said, yeah, it's all tarmac, no problem, off you go. Except, he said, the tarmac's now been ripped up by the trucks that use it all the time. So there's no road there anymore. Okay, I said, fine. I got to this place, so I'm on the way to the Trans-Siberian. And crawling around this city. And I'm thinking, fuck, I can't do this. The cars were solid. There was kind of 8 lanes of, you just couldn't move. So I got up on the pavement, and I was riding on the pavement. And there was this pretty young woman standing on the pavement. And I thought, I wonder if she knows where there is a motel. Well, she's wearing a very short skirt and very high heels. And she knew about motels. She knew all the local motels. So she pointed me off the motel, which I stayed there the night. And I've got to move on now. I've got to do this quite quick. Samara, you don't want to go there, but it's the beginning of the Trans-Siberian. Ufa was the next city that I got to, and I was looking for a hotel in the city. The first place I found was so bad even I wouldn't sleep there. I mean, you guys wouldn't even walk past it, but I wasn't going to sleep there. So I found this place, lovely. Got off the bike, saw myself in a mirror. Here we go, adventure biker, filth from top to bottom, smart hotel. The security came out and they said, "You need to move your bike." And I thought, oh God, no, here we go. They're just doing security stuff. And it turned out they were being very nice. This place was a nightclub I discovered at 11 o'clock at night when the music was banging on and stuff like that. And they asked me to move the bike because all the clubbers there were doing selfies. So I thought it was quite nice. So they were gentle and they carried my cases. And this was a real shithole. This is a place called Chelyabinsk. And it's actually, they built a railway there so they could start to populate Siberia. And maybe, I think about 20% of the people who ever went to live in Siberia went through this particular railhead. The reason it was important is because at the end of, during the Second World War, Stalin moved all the munitions factories out to Siberia, and this had a railhead, so they put it there. And they were building tanks and ammunition stuff, and they called it Tank Town. I thought that was quite interesting in the book. Lots of history, lots of history. So that place in the middle, the photograph in the middle, that one, this is actually a hotel. It looks more like an insane asylum, really, more than anything else. And I'd been looking for this hotel for about maybe an hour, going around the town. And I was on the road, and I was feeling so fucking tired and just fed up with all this shit. And I was sitting there, and a car came out of nowhere, and it kind of biffed. And I was laying on the floor with my ribs gone, and couldn't breathe and shit like that. And the guy jumped out of the car, someone else had picked it up. And I said, "Thank you very much. There's nothing wrong with the bike." I couldn't breathe, of course, and I was and I thought, fuck it. So I drove down this pavement, and at the end of the pavement, there was a hotel. There was no neon lights or anything. So I parked up, I went inside, and I said, "I'd like a room for the night." And they looked me up and down, like this. And they said, I don't know, some outrageous sum of money, so I paid it anyway. And then I said, "Can someone take my bags up to my room?" No, there's no service like that in Russia. There was a security guy there, and I said, "Please, can you help me?" And he just said, "Niet." So I said again, I was begging by this time. He said, "Niet, niet." And in the end, he stamped his pretty little foot and walked off. He really, I've never seen it before. He just, and walked off, flounced off, and there was me, with my broken ribs, having just fallen over again on the bike, and I was truly fucked, with kind of 2 cases and a top box and stuff like that. I managed to get up to the first floor. There was a couch. I laid down. I went to sleep. I wasn't doing it anymore. And the woman who runs the whole floor, she turned up with a tea trolley, which is very nice. But I had to put the cases on the tea trolley. I had to push it down this sodding corridor for about, it looked like a kilometre long. In the end, there was this another set of steps, a big iron door, which she pulled open. I got the bags and stuff into the room, and I couldn't get in. There wasn't enough room for me to get in there, which is a bit difficult, so I kind of like this. And then my friends who I was meeting there, they called me, and I thought, oh shit, I can't do this. I said 10 minutes. So I went and had a shower, and it was a kind of communal bathroom, and the water coming out of this house was rust. I was thinking, fuck me. I thought, I'm glad I went to a 4-star hotel, because, had I gone to a dump, can you imagine what it'd be like? So we got, I got out and saw my guys, and I won't tell the story now, but it's very funny, it's in the book. He said, quick commercial. Don't want to know about that. This is quite nice. I'd been riding now through Russia for about 4 weeks, and I got to this place. And the girls that I was staying with were fabulous. They were gay, and they had one sort of big bed for themselves, and they put me a nice little bed in the kitchen. And one of the things I discovered there is that corrective rape in Russia is quite a big issue. Now, I didn't know about this, and you never hear about it. And Mr. Putin says, I'm completely open-minded, I don't mind, gender or whatever. But these girls couldn't talk even to their family about the fact they were gay, because the families would kind of write them off immediately. And if they're picked up by the police, yes, corrective rape. We will rape you until you're not gay anymore, until you're not lesbians. Just appalling stuff. Anyway, they took me out that evening because I like opera. So they took me to the opera house, and the opera was closed because it was summer. And this woman down here is the one of the primo whatever. So she hummed me a couple of tunes, but she wasn't prepared to give me a private aria, unfortunately. I did hope. And we went out walking around, and oh, fuck it. Back here, press this. This little place just here. It's a little white church, and it evidently is geographically, it's the exact centre of all the Russias, and all the Russias mean Siberia and all the rest of them, you know. And we were standing there talking in English, and I was going, "Stap me," I said, because I'm polite when I'm abroad. "Stap me. I've been riding through your country for 4 weeks, and I've only got halfway." You know, and it's a big, big place. So I'm standing there, and this guy comes over and introduces himself, because he heard us speaking English. And I was a submariner a long time ago. I was on our first missile boat. And when we were on the missile boat, we were told that our missiles were pointed middle of Russia. So, standing there talking English, this guy introduced himself, and it turns out that he was also on a missile boat, a Russian missile boat with missiles pointed at us. You know, and, oh, I'm going to get emotional here. Kind of, it's almost 50 years on, and the pair of us are standing there, you know. Sorry. We were doing the same things, we were just separated by ideology, you know? And I look at the shit going on in the world at the moment. Fuck. Anyway, we had a couple of minutes silence between us, and very emotional moment. Sorry. In Novosibirsk, I thought I just couldn't do this anymore. I was in too much pain, you know, my ribs and stuff and things like that. So I was going to go to Lake Baikal and then turn right into Ulaanbaatar. So I decided instead I'd turn right in Novosibirsk and go down through the Altai Mountains into Mongolia that way. They are beautiful. Mr. Putin is spending millions down there to encourage the Russians to stay in their country rather than going abroad. But of course they're all going to Turkey, and they're having a great time in Turkey where there's proper service and stuff like that. They come back and they're all anti-Putin because of the shit that's going on in Russia, but still. So I you know, encourage them to go to Turkey, I say. Anyway, Altai, beautiful place. I stay with this family here, and it's the first time you know, we're down there in the sticks. Putin's actually, he's built an airport just at this point, and they bought up half the road so he could run an 8-lane up into the mountains where he's got this kind of palace going on, which he built for his mistress. Now he only earns $100,000 a year, by the way, but you know, he managed to get all this stuff going on. And so the guys here, they can't grow flowers, they've got to grow food, you know, so they're growing all their food in their garden. They draw the water from the well. There's an outside privy where you sit, you can see the mountains, you know, when you're sitting there, but can you imagine it gets to minus 25 here? Can you imagine sitting out looking at the mountains, having a dump, minus 25? Anyway. I forgot what I was going to say this, but that's good because I've got a race on. This nice little Ural motorcycle down the bottom here. The cottage that we're outside of, the guy had painted the cottage green and red to match the motorcycle, which I thought was gorgeous. Right, more Altai. I can see Mongolia, great. Tashanta. Where are we? Just here, right? Highlight it. This is a lavatory. So I was staying in this little yurt that you saw just then, and basically I begged my way into this yurt, and I was saying, "Is there a toilet?" She said, "Yeah, out there. There's the toilet." And it's sitting there, as you can see, it looking out over the steppe. So I went to use the toilet, and an Alsatian came out. I said, "Growl, it's Alsatian." I think, fuck me. And then a soldier came out. "Oh yeah?" And I said, just tripped off the lips. Można toileta, пожалуйста. May I use the toilet? Нет. I brought my own paper. Нет. Mine. And there was just no way. So this is where the Russian budgets go, right? This is on the border of Mongolia, and they have a soldier guarding a lavatory. Can you imagine that? So I sit out on the step, you know, as you do, trousers down, thinking, well, I wonder actually how much they do have to pay for this soldier to guard the one lavatory that is in this town. And if there's only one lavatory, where does everyone else go? Extraordinary. Anyway. Yeah. You go across, you go through customs. There's a 20-mile tarmac road, still on Russian kind of property, no man's land. You get to the end of it, and there's barbed wire going forever, and someone else to do a last stamp, and they pull back Mongolia, right, on Google, motorway. They pull back these iron gates, and the iron gates go grrr, or tinkle tinkle, whatever iron gates do when they're groaning. And in front of you is nothing. There is fuck all. There is not a road, a yak, a yurt, a person. There is nothing. So I thought, stap me, as one does. And so I get going down this road. Not a lot of petrol, not a lot of money. I'm looking for an ATM. In Mongolia, I'm looking for an ATM. Jesus. So we're bowling through this gravel, and I've had a couple of shaky moments. And I did about maybe 150 kilometres, I guess, something like that. And on the side of the road, there's a motorcycle, guy with a smile sitting on it. So I said to him in my best English, I said, can I get coffee here? And there's nothing. Nothing. And I said, and can I get petrol in the next town? There's nothing. So he looked at me, smiled a bit more, and said, follow me. So we're off across the steppe now, right? There's no gravel, there's no roads, there really is nothing. The only thing is a mountain. So we're going towards this mountain. And at the bottom of the mountain is his family yurt. No, wrong one. There we are. So they invite me in, which is very nice. And would I like to stay? Yes, please, that would be nice. And so, you know, they're going through my cameras and laptop and stuff like that, all of which disappeared, would you believe? And I got the Marmite out. You know, I'm British, here's the Marmite, let's have some of this. And I gave him the Marmite, and the camera came back, which was quite nice. I wondered what else I've got to give to get more back. And down here, this is probably my favourite photograph I've ever taken. This is the mother. And she's cooking dinner. That's a dung stove just there. And that's dinner. And it was, and you've seen Charlie on his programme and, you know, stagger around this area. And it was genuine testicles. And I can assure you, genuine testicles are fucking awful. They are just, and you're kind of chewing. Never mind. And there was rice with it, so that was all right. So I had some rice. And then, I'm just going to read you a little bit from my book now. And I think then I'll have to pack up, actually, because I'm over time already. I told you earlier about being an alcoholic. And one of the things about being an alcoholic is that you suffer a lot of depression and shit like that, right? So here I am in Mongolia, and right, and I haven't seen a petrol station. I'm in shit. I really am. So, can I read this? 20 or so years ago, I was co-owner of a business that lurched too often between affluence and negative cash flow. I remember, as if it were yesterday, being in my car, a dark navy blue Jaguar saloon, cream leather, walnut fascia and soundproofing so good I could barely hear the gravel spitting from the tyres as I drove at speed on the hard shoulder. Time was stretching, slowing down, dividing into nanoseconds. Approaching the bridge, I could see in fine detail the water-stained concrete, closer still the rust running like blood. In the grip of fear, financial insecurity and deep depression, I'd aimed my car at high speed at a motorway bridge. My brain had stopped, waiting for my life to end. And my heart slow thudding and the metal barrier about to screech, when a thought arrived unbidden. No, not today. Your death will teach no lessons. With infinite slowness, pressure applied by my right hand, the car was back in the proper lane, indicator flashing, leaving at the next junction. And when I was sitting in Mongolia, I felt pretty much like that. I was fucked. So I changed the mission. I said the mission was to reach Mongolia. I didn't have to cross it. So I'd done 300 kilometers, but I'd got there. I'd done it. Fabulous. So I turned around, they gave me some petrol, and I headed west, and I was so happy. I was such a smiley, happy person. Until I got to, and I think I'm going to have to wrap up, until we got to, it's all in here. Buy the book. Have fun. Okay. Got to Kazakhstan, and somewhere around here. No? Back up. Oh, I don't know where I am. Maybe the picture's not here. Anyway, so I'm rolling through Kazakhstan, and there was this, there's a wind called the Buran, and it starts in up in Siberia, and it crashes all the way across Mongolia, then into Kazakhstan. And when I first got into Kazakhstan for about 4 hours, it's more like sailing. I was riding at 45 degrees because of this wind. Unbelievable. And then what it does in summer, this wind, it whips up a dust storm. So I'm going over this this hill, and it was one of the roads that they repaired. And what they do in Kazakhstan when they repair roads, they just bulldoze another kind of parallel road, and they backfill it with sand and gravel and things like that. And you've got no idea how deep the sand is. You've got no idea what's going to happen next. Go over a hill, dust storm blowing, can't see a fucking thing, and a 4x4 pulls in front of me. And I can tell you this: if you pull on your brake, your front brake, on sand, your motorcycle is not best happy. So I was laying on the floor, and there's this fucking great Kamat's truck coming towards me. And it stopped inches from my head. Inches. And I was laying there thinking, beam me up, because I can't do this. And I didn't get beamed up, but I did get taken along to this, to a motel. I had to ride about 20 kilometres. I'd actually cracked my ankle. So I was in, I could still change gear, so that was all right. And I got to this, this motel, and someone had brought along all my panniers and stuff, which had broken off in the fall. And I loads of duct tape, got them on the bike. That was fine. Really painful. The manager came over and said, "I think you should stay here tonight." And I said, "I'm English. I can do this." And I got on the bike and I rode 50 metres and fell off again. So, so he turned up again and he said, "I think you should stay here." I said, "I think you're right, really." So some guys picked up the bike, they took it off, and I got to bed, and I wrapped my ankle with a wet towel and had some painkillers. And next morning, I got up and I thought, fuck me, this hurts. In the head, the 5 voices are going on. Fool, you can't ride anymore. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Yes, I can. Anyway, finally, the one that said yes, I can won out. So we went off down a road, and fortunately, it was only about another 300 kilometres of this terrible road shit. So we got through that. God helped. And I got to... I know why I'm telling you that story, because it's after this. Drugs. Middle of Kazakhstan. Move on. Middle of Kazakhstan. Nothing. I'd run out of petrol. There's this blue place. So I turned up and said, "You got any petrol?" He said, "No, but we got eggs." So I thought, okay, I'll have eggs. And I was sitting there eating eggs. Over the hill comes this cyclist. He pulls up, parks the bike, parks his cycle, and he comes in, middle of fucking nowhere. And he said, "Are you Derek Mansfield?" Fuck! Fuck! But it turns out that he's also couch surfing. We're couch surfing the same people. He wasn't a creditor. They weren't after me that much. And, they told him to look out for me, so here I was, and we met. Lovely man. No time, can't tell the story. A village. I've run out of petrol. I'm going through this village, and I see a Euro combination. I thought, that'll do. Banged on the door, and said, "Benzene, pожалуйста." Man said, "Come in." So we're sitting there having a cup of tea, and he's showing me this 50-inch TV. This is really in the middle of nowhere. Middle of the afternoon, we're flicking through the channels. We agree afternoon TV worldwide is rubbish. Right? It's absolute rubbish. When I got there, his it might have been a daughter, I don't know who it was. She came through the door. I came through the door, and he said, "Go and get some, make some tea." And she came back with lipstick, new dress, because he was a Westerner that she'd never met before. So we had tea, and then I said petrol, and he said fine. So we used the rubber tube, whatever it's called, and got some petrol in. Went to the next town, filled up. That was okay. Moving on. Ah, that was the dust storm. This is the English-speaking club of Ural. In the place is actually Uralsk, but they also call it Oral. Isn't that nice? And I had to go to this city. I had to go there. And anyway, met these wonderful people. This one just here, terrible worldwide. This one, beautiful, beautiful, gentle person. Her wife used to beat her. Sorry, her husband used to beat her, so she left him. And there's a thing in in Russia called a roof. A roof is a gangster. Basically what the gangsters do, they protect you from other gangsters. And they're called a roof because they hold a kind of roof over your head. And this woman had a roof to protect her. That was her roof. And she was banging someone in her office because his wife had got fed up with him. And she said, just go and have sex somewhere else. So that was the roof. Having sex with her, it's a wonderful world. It's a wonderful world. Yeah, a Kaylee band from Russia. The surgeon who owned that, where are we? It's here at the bottom here. I hadn't really had my ribs looked at. I hadn't had my foot looked at. She looked at it and she said, nothing to be done. Party on. Fine. Okay, off we go. Right, let's race through this now because it's dirty. Oh, I'm banned from Kazakhstan, by the way. They have. It's the same as Russia. You get there, you have to get the police to stamp the fact you're there, which a hotel normally does. I didn't know they had to do it in Kazakhstan, so I got to the border on the way out, and they said, big problem. No stamp on paper. So I said, how big a problem? He said, 300 euros. So I said, oh, really? So I said, no, I'm not paying anything like this. So, he said, well, you can go back to the last town, find a policeman, get him to stamp it, and da-da-da-da. I said, I wasn't doing that because the road was awful. So they got an interpreter to come all the way to tell me that I could either, and there was no talk about the 300 euros cash now because there was someone else there. So they said either you can pay an official fine of 400 euros, or when you leave the country you can pay it online to blah, 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 blah. What would you like to do? And I said, I'd like to fuck off because I've had enough of this country. And he said, okay, but don't remember that you've got to pay within 30 days. So they took. I went across the border and I said goodbye to the English language club, and I didn't pay the money within 30 days, so I can't go back to Kazakhstan. If ever you want to go to Kazakhstan, remember that. If you want to go back, remember it is more to the point. Right, I was on TV in Russia. That's good. This is Kiev. That's good. Lots of, see there's road signs up here. I didn't know when I first arrived there weren't many road signs to stop the spies, I guess, because it was a long time ago. And then road signs started appearing. I thought, these are wonderful. And I said to my business partner, because, she's Ukrainian, I said, where are they directing us to? And she said, they're ads. They're all ads. There are no directions anywhere. They're just advertising to go to different places. And it's changed now. You can see where you're going. Lovely cars. Polish border, few repairs. There we are, finally. Proper navigation tools. Can you see that? Tank bag with it all written down. It works. Better than GPS any day of the week. And that is the end. That's good. Now you've got to get out because there's someone else coming in. Fuck off.